Welcome to r/RedditRevenge. This is a story of someone getting back at someone with revenge after being wronged. Thank you friends for subscribing to the channel and for so many likes. The first story. I installed a security camera in my area in order to jail my neighbor. The second story. Guy got fired from his job because he didn't tip me. The third story. Captain, who is a grade A jerk, was constantly taking cold showers because I turned off his hot water. And the first story is the friendly next-door neighbors. Note, throughout this story I'm attending an out-of-state college, and some of the details could be slightly off, but the core of the story is truthful and sound. 2 summers ago, my family was blessed with a nice family moving in next door to us. The husband and wife, let's call them Chris and Rachel, have 2 young neighbors, 8 and 10 when they moved in, and our families were instant friends. Being away from home, I was always greeted by the children and had a good relationship with both of the parents. Our 2 houses were inseparable. Rarely did days go by where we did not see each other. Boy, can things change on a dime. The neighbors still had possession of their previous home, which they were renting to another family, and Rachel was always the one in charge of the mortgages and general finances. Slightly after a year and a half of living in the new house, Chris was very surprised to learn that the house they were renting was foreclosed on. After what I can only assume was an aggressive argument, the husband was kicked out and moved in with his friend. Don't be too worried about Rachel being a single mother though, as it didn't even take a week before the man she was having an affair with another close neighbor and his 3 kids. It is unknown how long they were together, but it's been at least 6 months. Since the wife knew my family was not on her side, she immediately cut contact, not even letting the kids say hi to me when I was in town. Most of the next several months were not very eventful to the story, but does explain why things are the way they are. The husband never pushed for anything in court because he was scared of what would happen to him if he pushed for custody, money, etc. Rachel was physically abusive and has some shady connections. When living together, the wife and her boyfriend had many physical altercations, to the point where DCFS did not allow the kids to live there. The children come back and the boyfriend is no longer legally able to live with Rachel. However, he just decides to stay and rarely is seen on the property. One day, my sister 18 and her boyfriend at the time were arguing on the front lawn and the neighbor decides to step in. Probably a dumb move by my sis, but whatever. Within seconds of the hag crossing the property line, my mother Nan was there to have her daughter's back. Nan, what are you doing here? You have no right to talk to my daughter like this. Rachel, you need to learn how to properly parent your kids. Your F-up daughter is making a scene. While Nan started to turn away to walk inside, thinking this stupid argument was over, she was stopped by Rachel pulling her by her hair. Once Nan was turned around, she was greeted her with a fist to the face. Somebody walking nearby alerted the police, who knowing the address promptly arrived at the scene. Unfortunately, since Rachel had friends who swore Nan threw a punch at her too, all charges were dropped. When Nan went to work the next day, she worked at the elementary school. Rachel's older kid sparked a conversation with Nan about her lip. That was all it took for Rachel to have her chance, as she complained to the school that an employee was talking to my child about private affairs. Due to Nan's good standing, her boss decided to move her to another school, instead of any disciplinary action. Rachel still believes she successfully got Nan fired. Time passes and soon enough the boyfriend's probationary period is up, and he is allowed to move back in. The day after the D-bag is officially living there again, guess who has to be called to the house? Knowing that another police intervention would have him kicked out again, the boyfriend leaves before the police arrive. In order to cover her trail, Rachel used her child's phone to text DCFS, "Help, Daddy is beating up Mommy." Police immediately arrest Chris and hold him overnight, as he had been at home and had no alibi. Rachel then used this instance to obtain an order of protection against Chris. In case you're unaware, an order of protection is basically a restraining order that is granted faster. In order to protect his friend from his demon wife, Chris' friend and roommate installed security cameras around their house, recording all data of persons entering or leaving the property. While installing the cameras, the friend crafted a master plan to help Chris in his time of need. One security camera was not installed on that house, as it could be used for a much better purpose. My family owns a tow-behind camper, which sits on the side of the driveway near the neighbors, and has a window with perfect vision over their driveway. Note, it is 100% legal in Illinois to install a security camera looking, not listening, at somebody's property, as long as it is installed on your own. 3 days pass. Another false allegation arises from Rachel. This time, apparently Chris had broken into her house. After reviewing the footage of the house, Chris never left, and the video footage of him sleeping at that time, yes, he started recording himself sleeping. The detectives were quick to realize who the real antagonist of the case was. It was at this time that the detectives became aware of the camera on my neighbor's house. 2 more accusations came from the lying bee the next week, both of which the detectives looked into without much surprise from the outcome. Several days later, the husband and his friend meet with Rachel and her boyfriend at their court date. Not only is Rachel continuing to push false accusations, her boyfriend decided that it would be a good idea to follow them up with threatening glances and whispering threats. Once the court session moves forward, the tables turn, and the detective announces that they are no longer looking at the husband, but Rachel for accusing him of crimes that never occurred. Rachel hears this and immediately leaves the courtroom with her boyfriend. After hearing of this surprise, the neighbors finally went home to see why their world was crashing around them. The security camera 10 feet away from their parked cars. The next story is no drinks, no tips. So I'm working at a huge party, concert, miscellaneous event locations, and I'm the guy responsible for refilling the bars with drinks every time the bartender mails an order, and also picking up the used glasses and pints to bring them to the washing station we have. In general, I'm the guy that helps the bar running there. Sometimes there are 2 or 3 of us in a shift, but other times not. There can be nights that there are 5 bars open and the place is full with around 3,000 people. Just to give you a taste of what the job looks like when the place is packed on a typical Friday or Saturday night, imagine that you have to carry and deliver around 20 beer kegs, each with a weight of 65 kilograms, 130 pounds, and around 60 cases of beer and soft drinks just when you start your shift. When something goes out at the bar, the bartender makes a new order that I have to deliver. And this goes on all night long, from 17 till 6 o'clock, and sometimes if there are any go-a parties till 11. Also, just to give another taste of big this place is, during a normal shift according to my phone, I'm walking 28 kilometers, around 17 miles. Where I come from, we call this job runner. The unwritten law there is like this, that each bartender has to give 20% of the tip they make each night to the runner, because without a runner he would have no drinks to serve. Nobody can really know who's really giving the 20% of their tip, but that's another story. But every bartender is giving something, and usually it's a lot, and all sides are happy. There comes a new guy and staff manager explains him the unwritten rule, saying exactly these words. You don't want to have problems with any of the runners, so be fair. When you're doing this job for a while, you know approximately if the tip you will get is going to be good or not. Fast forward. Huge metal fest with all bars open. 3 different stages plus outdoor bars, etc. Plus after show parties. The place is packed like there's no tomorrow. This festival is happening every year, and it's one of the best shifts, even though a lot of work and around 17 hours of work. Yes, it's a lot, but walking home with 1,000 tip is worth it. So the new guy has a spot at very good selling bar, was providing and delivering drinks there like crazy. After a long shift when everything done and they do their calculations, he brings the money to the treasury, looks at me, says cold-blooded thank you, have a good night. Tonight was a good night to work, and walks away without giving me my tip. That was it, folks. I kept doing my job every time he had a shift at one of the bars like nothing happened, and I was just waiting for full packed night to come. And finally, after a week, it was the time. Again, the place is fully packed. His first order arrives in my tablet. Sadly, I was too busy to deliver. 1 hour passes. He tries to call me on my phone. I pick standing next to a subwoofer. 1.5 hours go by. A second order arrives from him. Didn't even deliver the first one. Sadly, I was again too busy. Then after a half hour, the shift manager calls me on the radio. The shift manager was also doing this job before getting a better position there. Hey, what the F is going on? Why he has no drinks to sell? I'm busy with the rest of the bars. The guests can go to the other bars. Are you serious? That guy can only sell water and everything else is empty. And then I reply, he can sell water, but no one tips a bartender for water, right? Small pause on the radio. You can't be effing serious. He's leaving no tips for you guys? Yep, you guessed right. I'm sending the city at home. Positive. Probably that guy lost around 1,000 pure tip for himself that night. The last story is, I took cold showers for nearly 2 years because screw him. So several years ago, I was a firefighter in a small ARFF, Airport Rescue Firefighter Station, where I was the only female. So I was assigned the captain's bathroom, which was separate from the bunk room bathroom for showering and using the restroom. I was on a shift with a captain who was a grade A jerk. I mean a real SOB. His way or the highway, and he was verbally abusive to everyone, especially me. Anyway, my shower time was morning, and I, being a female, also shaved my legs. One morning I cut myself pretty badly and had to rummage in the first aid kit for a band-aid. He asked what happened and I said I cut my leg shaving. He flipped out, started yelling I had no business shaving my legs, etc. Keep in mind that I only ever spent 10 minutes with water running, if that. I was in and out as fast as possible to avoid his wrath. I even shaved using lotion in the sink to keep from using too much water so he could have his long hot shower every shift. Well, no more. Every morning he turned the heat on and stood in front of the oven to warm up. As soon as he disappeared to the back, I went to the janitor's closet and ran hot water in the mop sink for 10 minutes. Then I went up to the bathroom I used and ran the sink hot for as long as it took to use the toilet, shave, etc. By the time he got his shower, it was cold. Mine was too, but I didn't care. He was miserable and I lived for it. Each shift he yelled at me for being in the shower too long, even if he ran out of hot water before I got my shower. He yelled at the other guys. He complained. No one else had that problem. No one else in the morning had cold water. I didn't complain. For nearly 2 years, I quietly ran out the hot water each morning so he would run out mid-shower. No one ever asked why I was in the janitor's closet. No one ever said a word. They replaced the heating element twice, and the whole water heater once. Every single shift, every third day, for 2 years, until I got swapped to another shift. Then they changed a filter on the hot water heater and suddenly it worked again. He never figured it out. He had that and more coming for what he did to us, and I still hate that SOB. Edited to add, so for clarification and a little background, the reason the cold showers were terrible is he stayed cold. I didn't care. Cold showers weren't that big of a deal to me. Still aren't. I'm weird, I guess. Every morning he'd stand in front of the oven with it on 400 degrees and warm his hands after he got up. Never mind he heated up the kitchen to the point none of us could stand. To have breakfast in there, sometimes it would be so dang hot. He locked us out of the thermostat too, so it would be sweltering in the living quarters all year. Luckily, I was forced to sleep in the training room, only female on a rollaway bed, so I had a fan and could open a door to the Bay Area to regulate the temperature when it got too hot. The cold showers for him were a huge disruption in his morning routine. It meant that he didn't get 20 minutes of hot water think time before he blow-dried his nuts. Yes, I was told of this ritual when I asked why a bald man bought a new hairdryer to work. I suppose the cold showers were kind of evil, but after the abuse he put the shift through, some days it was all I had to hold on to. I eventually anonymously turned him in for throwing a chair at my head in a fit of rage. Everyone was told it was a female who turned him in. So much for anonymous. They kept him on and kept me on his shift another year to punish him, since he hated me so much. I eventually got sick with Meniere's disease and was no longer able to be a firefighter and had to leave my beloved profession permanently. I could detail the horrors of working for this guy, but I'm not comfortable talking about all of it. But this, well, I still chuckle about this, and as much as I shouldn't, I delight in sharing this story. If they replaced the whole water heater, why didn't they just get a bigger one so that it wouldn't be an issue? Because it cost more money and the Chief was cheap as hell. That question did come up also at Tankless, but since it cost more, they went with the cheapest thing possible. That was a pretty standard decision around that department. When I burned up a set of gear, I was put in a set that didn't fit properly, rather than ordering new. Why? Because it cost less. Thanks for watching, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.